Most game genres have some type of event. For a large percent of video game genres, this consists of the seasonal events like Christmas, Halloween, Easter, Valentine's Day, and many more. And like their name entails, these events decorate the game world in the respective events' design and decorations. If it's Christmas, you will find a massive Christmas tree in the center of major cities and houses plastered in red and green lights. If it's Halloween, you will find many jack-o'-lanterns scattered throughout the streets and cobwebs all around. But gacha games work a tad bit differently. On top of having seasonal events, gacha games will also have their own events within the game world to give the player something to do, while also rewarding them for their time and effort. Some events can be very important to the story, and other events can be purely added for gameplay and enjoyment purposes. This is a very important note to remember for when we talk about Genshin Impact. Now in this video, I'm going to take a look at all the major events for Genshin and Honkai, starting from Genshin's 1.0 patch and the same patch Honkai was at the time. Well, that's what I would have liked to do, but there's one extremely hindering factor. Honkai's fandom wiki is really bad. As I only have started playing Honkai in the past few months, I haven't been able to play any major events, so researching them by timeline would be a massive help, but sadly the Honkai fandom wiki is really bad and doesn't help in any way. While Genshin's fandom wiki does outline events per patch and is super easy to follow. So with this difficulty in the way, how am I going to do this video? Well, as a Genshin player, I will personally pick some of the higher quality events that provided new and interesting gameplay, as well as being really fun and balanced. While for Honkai, I will try my hardest to find some of the most well-received events that I can find, either through copious YouTube videos or online threads. So, let's begin with Genshin Impact's first event, which isn't technically its first event, but it's the first important one, Unreconciled Stars. Now, if you've played this event, you'll be questioning my decision to pick this event, but rest assured I have my reasons and I'll get to that after I explain the event. Unreconciled Stars was, frankly speaking, a boring event. Its gameplay was just kill enemies, nothing experimentative, just plain old kill enemies. So in regards to creativity, it's terrible. But the reason it's here is to explain the overarching problem Genshin has with some of the events in this list. The Unreconciled Stars was the first perpetrator, and that is having canonical quests and interactions be inside a limited time event. The Unreconciled Stars was the first time we met Scaramouche, a Fatui Harbinger, and this is an extremely important interaction as he literally tells us that he has discovered the meaning of the universe, and this quest also establishes the Fatui Harbingers as the villains of the game. But if you didn't play during patch 1.1, you will not know any of this has happened, as you can't replay the story portion of the event. Unreconciled Stars was an okay event for its release time in the game's history, but it had rather important information pertaining to the currently relevant characters that new players can't get when they start playing Genshin Impact. Unreconciled Stars is purely number one on this list to outline this idea, because all the events that I've chosen for Genshin do this. Moving on though, the festival events are great. Probably some of the best events in Genshin, and currently there are three. The Wind Bloom Festival for Mondstadt, Lantern Rite Festival for Liyue, and Iridori Festival for Inazuma. And as you may have guessed, there'll be one for each region, because these events celebrate that region's real-world equivalent celebrations. These festival events are being grouped together as they are pretty much identical in gameplay. Within each festival event, you will have a handful of minigames, from archery to rhythm games to tower defense games to more open-world chests to find. Wait a minute, that last one wasn't fun. Take that off the script. While all these minigames are fun and enjoyable, and more are likely to come as we get more festivals and repeats, the one problem or personal gripe I can find is that when you have amazing minigames like Theater Mechanicus, which is a tower defense akin to Bloons Tower Defense, where you have to build turrets next to a path that will shoot enemies that walk along that path towards your base, you have so much potential and freedom to make it super fun and expansive, because you can create anything you want and it would make sense. But Genshin did the opposite, and I could rant about Theater Mechanicus for a whole video, and I did before I had to shorten the script, but I'll save you guys your ears. Where my problem lies here is that Theater is accompanied by some extremely lackluster co-events. Alongside Theater Mechanicus, miHoYo has events like the Lantern Rite Tales, which was essentially, here, have 2 to 3 extra daily commissions for a week, or the Floral Courtyard, which was rearranging a pot of flowers for half a minute. And because these other events were played alongside Theater, they could split the attention, thus not making Theater this mega amazing in-depth event that it could have been. The festival events are a great opportunity to go all out in one specific minigame style, and try and make it as fun as humanly possible, but sadly that hasn't happened yet. And the final problem, as I mentioned earlier, all the events that I mentioned here have story information that isn't replayable. The first Lantern Rite deals with the Moon Chaser, one of the Adepti, and celebrating him, while the second Lantern Rite establishes that Guoba, Zhang Ling's little bear companion, is literally Marcosius, the god of the earth. But as a new player, that is not important apparently. This next event is a bit of an extension to the festival events, and it's the Golden Apple Archipelago event, or similar styled ones, where a new zone is added or a previous zone is used as a catalyst for mini games and events to take place. Thought it should be mentioned that adding a new limited time zone is quite nice, but keeping it in the game would be even nicer. Next event is near and dear to my heart. My favorite event, I might say. Labyrinth Warriors, one of the greatest events in many different areas, from replayability to creativity to difficulty. Each one of these aspects felt balanced for the time. The event gameplay was essentially a roguelike dungeon crawler where you progress through a domain, walking from room to room, killing enemies and receiving buff cards that had game-changing potential, from boosting constellation levels or even massive damage bonus to explosives. And the difficulty was, at least in my opinion, well balanced. If you had a well-constructed team and pretty good damage dealers, then you would be able to clear the highest level of difficulty for each stage with minimal problems. But this topic is moderately contentious, as there are a large number of players who claim that it was too difficult, but they themselves didn't run optimized teams or builds. But I won't get into that because that's a whole other video. Labyrinth Warriors was great. It was fun to replay because of the card system providing some really fun and cool builds that could be tested, and this was one of the first events that provided some sort of difficulty for endgame players so they could actually use their characters that they paid for. And out of all the events in Genshin Impact, Labyrinth Warriors was the one that had the most potential to be added as an extra endgame weekly grind system. But unfortunately, like the two previous events, it wasn't added, and Labyrinth Warriors suffers from an unreplayable story. Tartaglia and Jinyan have story and character progress throughout this event, but new players will never get to experience it. Finally, I want to quickly mention Divine Ingenuity, a really good event conceptually and was executed extremely well. An overall very well received event, but suffers from the fact that it wasn't kept in the game as a gameplay option. The basic premise was that players could create their own parkour domain puzzle, where you would race against the clock to collect all the coins in the stage and get to the finish line. Conceptually an event that has infinite potential purely due to it being player driven. Creativity is endless, and this event had endless possibilities, but was thwarted by the divine hammer of removal that Genshin seems to use all the time. These are the events that I've chosen to represent Genshin Impact. As a player who has played through all of them at least once, and some of them 3 times due to having 3 accounts, I can say wholeheartedly that this selection of events best represents what Genshin can do. They showcase the creativity and unique gameplay with Theater Mechanicus, or the small quick-fire minigames like Divine Ingenuity, or even the potentially infinite endgame game modes like Labyrinth Warriors. The quality is there, but the problem is they never stay. Stepping to our other competitor, Honkai Impact. As a new player to Honkai Impact, only been playing for about 2 months, I haven't had the chance to experience a lot of the events. To be honest, I've only played through Empyrean Legends, Shattered Dimensions, Rosemary's Floriograph, and the current Griseo event. So for objectivity's sake, I'm going to at least talk about 2 of these events that I've played, and some others that the lovely people in my Discord suggested that were regarded as great events. So let's start off with one of my favorites, the current Griseo event, or also known as the Journey of Painting Stars. This event was amazing, by the way. In short, this is an auto chess event, but to explain, in this event you have 3 chapters to play through, each with 20 to 25 stages, and each stage is more or less an auto chess match, where you pick and choose which pieces you want to use, place them at specific positions to gain advantage, and let the match begin. For the most part, you are just watching the gameplay itself, but the appeal of this comes from the fact that you are doing this within another game. You're playing a game in a game, and a rather in-depth one at that. The Griseo event has a surprisingly large amount of depth, stemming from team composition, type countering, star levels, and passive unit buffs, each one playing an extremely important role in the success of a match. The creativity factor is there for it being a completely new game. The replayability is near infinite as you optimize your team to the finest percentages and try different teams, and the difficulty is most certainly there due to the fact that if you don't know what you are doing when it comes to the later stages or even the Dreamland, then you won't be able to get far. This being one of the first few events that I have ever played in Honkai, it just goes to show the creativity they are willing to test out to make a game interesting. Adding a completely different game mode such as auto chess takes an incredible amount of planning and thought to make it balanced, interesting, and replayable, all within one patch worth of design time. Moving to the next event that I personally played and believe it's the best event in Honkai hands down, Empyrean Legends. Or more broadly, I'll call them the chibi events, because there are multiple that take on this style, but I personally have played through Empyrean Legends. The chibi events, as the name implies, lets you take on various characters from the game in chibi form, and do various quests or missions depending on the specific event it is. In Empyrean Legends, you enter PvE missions where you go through a stage and fight many different enemies and bosses, fighting your way to the end of the stage. In between stages, you could spend resources to level up your characters, and you had a total of about 5 to 6 characters, each one with their own unique weapon. Empyrean Legends has a lot of layers of difficulty, ranging from learning each character's strengths and weaknesses and being able to apply them accurately, even though Himeko was quite overpowered. Learning the enemy's attack patterns and general skill set to avoid taking unnecessary damage, and this is applied to both bosses and general enemies in the later stages. In terms of changing how you play the game, the chibi events are beyond phenomenal. Like the Griseo event, you pretty much aren't playing Honkai Impact anymore, because these events by themselves could be standalone video games. This can be said for all the chibi events, which include a Battle Royale chibi event, where you choose a chibi and jump into a Battle Royale. Nothing else really to it. And even an open lobby quiz type event, which is hard to describe, but essentially boils down to a lobby of around 30 to 50 people in an area doing small tasks and collectively answering quiz questions. The chibi events really do add another completely different game to Honkai that provides fun, replayability, and difficulty. Now, going on to these next two events, some information may be wrong, I haven't played them personally, and it's rather difficult to find event-specific info on Honkai events. The Honkai Kingdoms, another dearly beloved event, but from my research, it's for completely different reasons. The Honkai Kingdoms event, or as I'll call it Kingdoms from now on, is just Honkai Impact gameplay. You select some characters and jump into some combat stages. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less. So if there's no new gameplay, or new mechanics for the most part, what does Kingdoms bring to the table? Well, the answer is a completely new story that you can experience in-game. The story is set a millennia or so ago in the Honkai timeline, but instead of using the characters of that timeline, it uses the currently existing ones. So you'll have a Kiana, Mei, Bronya, Durandal, and Rita. As for gameplay, the event does what Honkai does best. Put you against a single enemy or a group of enemies and test to see how fast you can kill them. Essentially an Abyss or Memorial Arena run with some added twists and turns here and there. This description is most likely not doing the event justice, but from what I can tell, this is a heavily story-focused event that tells a tale that you would want to experience firsthand. So I don't really want to mention the general plot so I don't spoil anything by accident, but the general reception from the community tells me that it is quite the enjoyable event and worth experiencing. Sometimes events can be something unbelievable. Something like creating a unique open world specifically for an event. This has happened 2 times to my knowledge. Once recently with the Shattered Dimensions, an event I personally played and thought was quite fun. But a more popular choice would be the Arc City open world. I personally have not played the Arc City open world, but from the research I've done, it looks outstanding. It is an open world taking the assets from the Arc City chapters in the main story and connecting them together and expanding in some cases to create a moderately large open world. Like most open worlds in Honkai, it is riddled with chests and small collectible sparklies that either give resources or event XP that can boost your level, allowing you to explore more of the open world. The world is separated by levels, so the higher level you are, the more you can explore. And this means event level, not captain level. But that isn't the only gameplay. As per usual, there are the classic Honkai stages. Play as a character, kill some enemies. But there is also some amount of story. The story falls into the Captain Verse section, which is a sub-story of the main story, following the captain and his adventures. These open world events don't do anything crazily unique, except for the fact that it's a whole new open world. There's no new game mode, no unique characters, just a quality open world. Before moving on to the summary, I want to take a quick glance at the rewards that you can expect from each game's events. Genshin will generally only give Primogems and level up materials. Level up materials come in varying quantities, but as for Primogems, if it's a major event, you will roughly get about 500 to 600, and minor events can range from 200 to 400s. These numbers are just rough estimates. And on the very, very, very rare occasions, Mihoyo will give a free 4-star character or a limited time 4-star weapon. Though the weapons being rare makes sense as they are sometimes extremely strong, like the Festering Desire from version 1.2, but the characters should be a bit more frequent. And after version 1.6, skins began being accessible through events, but only the 4-star skin. and only for that specific iteration of that event. And remember, very rare occasions. Calculating the exact gem count for Honkai events is a bit tough, but looking at the current Griseo event, you can get around 300 plus crystals, a new outfit, a new character, and a limited time emblem. And most of Honkai events follow this theme. The crystal count isn't super high. A character or a character outfit, or even both may be present depending on the character release schedule, and you also get some general upgrade resources or limited time stuff. To me at least, it seems that Genshin gives slightly more of its rolling material, but doesn't have a variety of different rewards frequently. While Honkai has a large variety of rewards ranging in value, and so they level out the rewards so there's not too much of anything. Now to summarize, Genshin has the creativity potential. It has shown that it can create a new and interesting game mode that change the gameplay completely and give players a new feel from the extremely repetitive gameplay it already has. This is seen through Theater Mechanicus, a Bloons Tower Defense game mode, which completely 180s the feel from the player has to do everything to the game auto-plays itself. Well, it's not fully autoplay, but that's a topic again for another video. Divine Ingenuity and the Rhythm minigames are great replayability game modes as they are driven by the player base. The players are the one creating the parkour puzzles that you will speedrun to get a fast clear, or the beat maps that you Osu players will binge for 12 hours until you get 100% accuracy. And Labyrinth Warriors gave endgame players a taste of what endgame could truly be in Genshin Impact. A room-to-room, floor-to-floor exploration, fighting various different enemies, collecting buff cards that completely change how you play the game, and this all leading to the final boss fight. These are the pinnacle of Genshin events. Everything else is a fighting simulator. Honkai, on the other hand, is exactly the same. Creativity shown through the Griseo event, an auto chess game mode designed from the ground up. Form your team to counter the enemies and watch them auto fight each other till one team wins, with depth to increase each unit's power. Replayability through many of the events as they all have some in-depth building and grinding mechanic, but Empyrean Legends will be used here because of the chibi battle royale. And endgame is kind of in all of them, as a lot of events have a leaderboard of some sort where you can compete with other players. Genshin and Honkai Impact are so similar in conceptualizing their events, and if I'm honest, I'm torn between picking which is better. But there is one discerning factor. There is a lot more depth in the Honkai events that change the game completely than there is in the ones in Genshin Impact. Empyrean Legends and the Griseo event are marginally more in-depth than Theater Mechanicus and the minigames. So with that, Honkai just barely takes this point. Now, if you've watched this point, I thank you. And you've probably noticed one thing. Whenever I mention Genshin Impact events, I always end it with, they are not permanent additions. And you may also wonder why I don't say the same thing for Honkai Impact events. The reason is quite simple. Genshin has nothing else. Genshin is extremely dry when these events are not here. The endgame doesn't have enough time or frequency to provide interest. While Honkai has an endgame that you can hear about in the Genshin vs Honkai endgame video. Tell me what you think in the comments. Are Genshin and Honkai equals in conceptualizing their events, or does one win over the other? Which game has better events for you? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, like the video and sub to the channel. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.